Good evening and welcome to the January 21st, 2020 City Council meeting. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present with the exception of Chair Chaburka and Council Member Lopez. Starting out, we've asked Council Member Heyer to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise and recite the pledge with me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'd ask that you join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. Next up is we have some requests to be on the agenda. First up is Weber State University. We would ask President Brad Mortensen and company, yes. I have some names here, but I'm worried I would not say them correctly. So,
and you'll notice that I will use the shorthand version in a minute. So. Good evening. Thank you for allowing us some time to be on the agenda. This is a little bit different tour stop than we've done in some other places where maybe Weber State hasn't had a chance to present before the City Council, but you all are very friendly and welcoming to us and to many, many groups from Weber State, but wanted to make sure that you knew that we were not leaving out Ogden City as we try to get around and work with all of our municipalities in northern Utah and let them know about the great things happening at Weber State. So again, I'm Brad Mortensen, and I'm the president of Weber State now for the last year, and just wanted to share with you some of the ties and connections that we have with Ogden City. You might be going, I know all this, but I bet I'm gonna stump you on a couple things. But so right now, Weber State has 29,644 students enrolled. That was our official enrollment number last fall. That includes 18,337 degree-seeking students, and then we have one of the largest concurrent enrollment programs in the state with another over 10,000 students enrolled in concurrent enrollment. How many Ogden City students do you think there are at Weber State, in addition to these four that are here with me tonight? Almost 4,000, 3,977 of our students are Ogden City residents. We have 39,638 alumni who live in Ogden City. So, certainly we have a big impact here, and you have a big impact on the university, but it's kind of thinking about those numbers, it puts it in perspective a little bit more that our relationship really is significant, and the things that the university is trying to do to serve the residents and the alumni is really important. Just to highlight a few of our alumni who are members of Ogden City. Ogden City School District Superintendent Rich Nye is a Weber State alum. Stacy Bernal, who's a member of our Alumni Association Board of Directors and lives here in Ogden City, has her associate's and bachelor's degree from Weber State as well, and has a successful speaking business. See Stacy Speaks. Stacy's a very inspirational person if you know her. Former Ogden City Council member Mary Hall is a Weber State alum as well. So those are a few highlights. You know that we do a lot of community engaged learning within the boundaries of Ogden City, not the least of which is some of the work that happens with the Ogden Civic Action Network, which we're very proud to partner with you on that significant initiative, but also just on a few specifics, the Catholic Community Services of Northern Utah. We have students and faculty and staff who spend thousands of hours there helping with their programs, and also with Youth Impact, helping to tutor a number of students. And one of the students commented that it was very rewarding to see the excitement that lit the children's faces when they got the right answer or grasped a new concept. So these partnerships are really important to the educational processes that we do, as well as hopefully benefit the residents of our fine city. Let's see. I'm going to transition now because we have some students here who want to talk to you, right? Yeah, you're good. Okay. So we have a group of students called the Presidential Leadership Fellows at Weber State. They were nominated by their faculty for not only their outstanding academic accomplishments, but also for their broader engagement across the university or in special projects. And so we have 4 of them here tonight, and I'm going to introduce 3 of them to speak to you. First of all, Weston Lee is an organizational communication and Spanish major, and he's a senior. And then Nikki Mishra, who's studying microbiology and is a sophomore and has a pretty interesting story about how she came to be at Weber State. And then Jennifer Morales is a computer science and professional sales major. And so if it's okay, Mr. Vice Chair, I'll turn a little bit of time over to each of them. So let's see, Weston, do you want to go first?
Thank you, President Martinson. So I'm a senior at Weber State. I love Ogden. I love Weber State. I went to Utah State for my first semester of school. Wasn't sure what I was wanting to do. And I actually took a break. I lived in New York City for a little bit. I was about to transfer to the City University of New York. Then I came back to Ogden. I was visiting some friends. I was spending a lot of time on Weber State campus, and I just fell in love with that. I fell in love with the staff and faculty, the teachers. I love the outdoor recreation here. And I made, just the realization that Weber State's for me, and it's been a great experience. I love interacting with all the staff and faculty there, the small classes, all my professors I have a really strong relationship with. I'm able to engage the community and with, organizations with my internship, and it's just been a really great experience. And I'm so grateful that we have Weber State here in our community. I was born and raised in Ogden, lived in North Ogden and Pleasant View for part of my life, and Weber State is just a hidden gem, and I just love it. And I'm so glad that I've been able to attend there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Niharika Mishra. You can call me Nikki. And I'm an international student from India. So what I understand from Weber is a hub of opportunities. Like, this is my second year, and I'm about to finish my first research. So yeah, and you might be interested in that fact that how I found Weber. Like, I was wandering on the internet, and I'm really into microbiology. I just found a scientist, and I went through his researches, and later I found that he is a professor at Weber State University, Dr. Craig Oberg. And I just shooted an email to the Weber State University that how can I get into your university? And they just gave me the whole pathway for it. Like, you need to give TOEFL, you need to give SAT, and I am here. And I met him, and I told him, like, I'm really into microbiology and his probiotic stuff, and he just helped me with that stuff. And I'm about to publish my first paper, like, in the way of a directed research. Yeah, he was my mentor. He is my mentor. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Please.
Hello.
Hi.
So, like President Mortensen said, my name is Jennifer Morales. I'm a sophomore at Weber State. I'm doing computer science and professional sales. So actually, I was born in Arizona, but when I was 10 years old, my family decided to move to Ogden, Utah for a job that my dad was offered. So I've lived here for the last 9 years of my life. And the one thing that I've learned to love is that you have all 4 seasons here. We have all 4 seasons here. And that's really nice. And growing up, I always thought, I'm going to move back to Arizona one day. And so I've lived here, and I decided to go to school here. And I'm really grateful for Weber State because it allowed me to stay home and stay in Ogden, which I now consider my home. And I don't plan on moving back to Arizona. But kind of like Nikki said, I like to consider Weber State and Ogden a city of opportunity. I've had tons of opportunities to give back to the community. I've volunteered through the university with the Catholic Center and the Boys and Girls Club, and even helped out with Ogden Nature Center. And I love that. Not only do I get to receive from Ogden, but I get to give back.
Thank you.
And then if we can introduce one more student as well. Sure. Thanks for text messages. I wasn't sure if Sergey was planning to speak or not, but Sergey is. So Sergey Akhmedov, close, is a mechanical engineering major. And so Sergey will give you a minute too.
Thank you, Brad. Hi, my name is Sergey Akhmedov. I am a mechanical engineering major, as Brad mentioned. My parents are both Russian immigrants. They immigrated about 27 years ago. So I was born here in Ogden, and I've grown up, gone to Mount Ogden Junior High. Then I attended New Ames High School, and then I enrolled in their early college program. So I've been in contact with Weber State almost my entire life. My oldest brother actually graduated from Weber State as well. People might say, oh, you just went to Weber because you didn't have a choice in the matter. But I really think that Weber State is my home. I love Ogden, the scenery, all of the events. It's just home to me. And thank you.
Spasiba.
Thank all of you for all of your support that you provide for the university. These are just 4 examples of the great students that we have at Weber, and hopefully as they indicated, they're excited to be part of the community for what it gives them, and they're trying to give back as well. And we try to adopt that attitude all across campus. So as you know, we're eager to always engage. We appreciate the support with our ongoing support with our College Town initiative with all of you. Appreciate the support that you've shown over the years as we try to do different initiatives to help the university grow. We're excited to see the Southeast area community plan, as I would call it, come together and help to address needs in the future as we grow on campus. So please, the only thing I ask of you tonight is that you let us know when we can help. So appreciate that. Happy to respond to any questions, and just want to point out, Stephen, yes, Stephen make sure that I do the right thing. Did they have these, or can we pass these out? So here's our copy of our most recent annual report that highlights a lot of facts and figures and stories that are good things happening at the university. And I want to make sure you all have a copy of that. And I think there's some other materials inside for prospective students, and also a voucher for Weber State basketball tickets. So invite you all to participate in that or any of the other great activities we have on campus. So with that, I'll conclude, but happy to respond to any questions.
Any questions for President Mortensen?
I just have a comment. Some 48 years ago, I graduated from Weber State in 1972.
It was Weber
When
Academy
you were 3
then,
years
wasn't
old?
it?
So,
Was it Weber Academy then?
No. I think President McKay was our president. But I recall many changes has happened up there. I recall those single buildings that were off the side, and now there's no more. And the library was just being built, and the Browning Center was just being built. Boy, that makes me old, doesn't it? But it is a wonderful university. In fact, they would play their games in the gymnasium there, and they would pack that. And sometimes we would take teams that would come into here, and they wouldn't want to play Weber State because the crowd was right on their heels there, and we were able to be successful in that aspect there. So,
thank you.
I must say I'm happy that you got the job. Being a local son of the area, it was a real pleasure for me to hear that you had gotten that spot. Several of us were on a letter writing campaign to the Board of Regents, hoping that
Thank you.
putting support behind you, and we're glad that you got it. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. Well, I'll try to live up to that good support. I really appreciate it.
I just have a real quick comment. You know, I think it starts, and thanks for that lead in, but I think it does start from the top in your leadership. And you're not afraid to get in and do and show the students about doing. I was sitting in the stands of that last football game, and you're out giving out hand warmers and, you know, cheering up the crowd. And I appreciated that. And so it's about doing and just watching your leadership's great, and the students following in your footsteps. So be careful, you've got some right behind you.
Thank you. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you, and thanks
Please
for
let
your
us know how we can
partnership
help.
with the city and for all that you do. And I was talking earlier, because of where I live, I get to see Weber State a lot, and it's fun to go up there, and I walk around, and it seems like there's always lots of building going on, lots of improvements, and lots of new opportunities for students. And I think Weber State does a great job of providing as many opportunities as they can. And so we appreciate all that you do and all that you guys do for our community.
Well, thank you. And please let us know how we can help. So,
Okay.
thanks.
Weber State, Weber State.
Great. Well, definitely thanks for President Mortensen and to the students he brought with him. Next up is a presentation from the Rocky Mountain Power and Cascade Energy. And I believe we have, is it Brady Hurd? Brady Hurd, and he's going to introduce his guests.
So yeah, my name is, well, first of all, good evening, Vice Chair, members of the council, and Mayor Caldwell. Appreciate you guys allowing us the time. So my name is Brady Hurd. I'm the Public Utilities Manager for the city, and I have the privilege to introduce Matt. No, you're good. The privilege to introduce Matt Jensen, who's with Cascade Energy. Cascade Energy is a consultant for Rocky Mountain Power. They ultimately help facilitate the industrial Watt Smart program, and this last year, they've been helping the water division with the strategic energy management program. And so Matt is here to present on the findings of that program, and then also present a Rocky Mountain incentive check to the council. And so without further ado, we'll turn the time over to Matt. So thank you.
Thank you. City Council and Mayor, a pleasure to meet with you today and to present. I'm here on behalf of Rocky Mountain Power and Cascade Energy to talk about the Industrial Watt Smart program, and specifically their outreach towards city water use. SEM is what we call it, Strategic Energy Management. About 2 years ago, we engaged with your city and a group of others to identify energy saving opportunities within the operations of your water system. So let me talk briefly about what strategic energy management is. It's a program that looks at low and no cost changes to how you operate your system. So we did identify capital improvements, opportunities, and hopefully those things have gotten in your long-term plan. But mostly we were looking at how do you supply water to your residents? Are there ways you could do it for less energy? This was a program that was funded by Rocky Mountain Power. They paid for us to come in and work with your team, but it still required a commitment. And we appreciated that Kenton agreed to participate. You guys were gracious enough to host most of the workshops. It was a year and a half long engagement, 18 months. Up on the screens, it kind of shows a little bit of a graphic of what we do. Central to this program is that we create an energy model where we look at historically how much energy you use to serve your citizens or your residents. And then as changes are made to how you operate, we can capture what the actual savings are in the energy used to meet those needs. So here's the team that we worked with. Executive sponsor was Kenton. For the entire 18 months. He left after we finished. Our energy champion over production was Rustin Monson, the 2019 operator of the year. And the energy champion of distribution was Ted Bullock. And then other team members that were there, Vincent Ramos helped, Lori, of course, and Dave LeMay, who's here. So let me go through a little bit of what the program looks like. We had 5 workshops over the course of a year. Like I said, you guys hosted 4 of those for us, or I guess 3 of those. There's a number of cities involved. So there were 4 cities in northern Utah and then a water district in the Jordanelle area. And we met with your team. They were day-long events. There was a lot of technical information presented. And then after the first 2, we did a treasure hunt. So we came and worked in your city with your guys. We did a tour of the treatment plant a little bit later on, but we looked at your hydraulic model. We looked at how you're sourcing your water, what things could be done to save energy. And then your team, with our help, created a list of opportunities. They brainstormed ideas on how we can operate better and save energy. And then over the next 18, or I guess about 12 months at that point, we just worked with them to implement those changes, work through any technical issues and concerns they might have, and operate your system better. So let me show some of the things that observations we made for your system. Now, I need to apologize. Some of these data I made without fully understanding your system, and so afterwards, we went and revised that information as we moved forward, but I never updated these slides, and so as I was putting it together, I was like, it's not all entirely there. But this graph here is accurate. So we looked at, in here, the green line is your energy use, and then the other line shows your different water sources. So your well production is the purple line up near the top. Your Weber Basin water is the darker blue line about in the middle. Your treatment plant water is the red. And then the water you get from Taylor Canyon is that blue line at the bottom. Those are the main sources of energy, or sources of water that you get. And so we looked at those and tried to match them with, what were the drivers for your energy use. Here we kind of broke down where is your energy being spent in your water system, and the bulk of it was coming from the Eden well sites. Now, I need to mention for this one, we didn't have your treatment plant in there, and so those percentages would change if the treatment plant was included. And then we looked at, okay, what's the relative energy intensity of each of your sources? And your Weber Basin water comes in with almost no energy burden. And so that is the least energy cost of your water sources. And then after that becomes the Eden well. And then, like I said, afterwards, we had to fit the plant in there as well. So these are some of the actions that were taken by your team. We went up, Russ and I and one of my engineers went and spent an afternoon analyzing the energy intensity of your wells. You have 6 wells up there, but they're not all identical. And some well combinations, you can produce water for less energy per million gallons than others. That was important information for Russ and his team to figure out, so they can favor those wells and provide water at less energy. Another one was the allotment from Weber Basin. The way the contract works is you pay for the total amount of water that you could use, whether you use it or not. And then they have pretty stiff penalties if you go over. And so what that means is most cities operate much below that threshold because they don't want to go over. In your case, there was a lot of room to work. And so Ted and his team started shifting the amount of water that was coming from Weber Basin, using more of that allotment that you were paying for anyway, and then reducing the water you're producing from other sources that have energy attached to it. They changed their boosters to pump at night when the energy costs less money. They looked at temperature set points in the PRV vaults and other remote buildings. They did a leak audit for air leak in the plant. There's a couple different air sources there, and Russ and his team went through with some soapy water, sprayed it on there and found where those leaks were and fixed them. And then they looked at the Taylor Canyon well and refurbished that. Here's the results that came from their efforts. So this is a chart that we use. I updated this and sent this out to them on a monthly basis. The blue line shows your actual energy use. In the gray section, which is on the left side of the graph, it shows historic. And then the red line is the model that we fit to that. In the blue section on the right is the performance period, where we're actually measuring the actual energy use versus the historic energy use. And you can see there's quite a dip in the amount of energy you're using. And we added up that difference over time, and that's the green line that comes down. So over that year and a half, you guys saved 1.3 million kilowatt hours, which is a substantial amount of energy. Here's the result, so 1.3 million kilowatt hours. That works out to be about $56,000 of energy avoidance. And then the Rocky Mountain Power, as part of this program, is they have an incentive of 2 cents per kilowatt hour. So I brought a check today for $27,000, $257, to just compensate you for the time of your employees and to say thanks for your focus on energy efficiency. In your system, that works out to be 18% of your energy. for your water system, which is a remarkably high number. So I wanted to make sure that I talked to Brady, offered to come and present because this is a really significant accomplishment. And I wanted to make sure that your team receives a recognition for the work that they've done. Most cities don't save this much. And so Russ did great, Ted, their teams, they were very involved, smart guys that engaged in this stuff, embraced it, and you can see the results. So we've brought a couple things for you. I've got with me Steve Rush with Rocky Mountain Power. He is your account manager for Ogden City, as well as Sunny Devnani, he manages your account for the Rocky Mountain Power Watt Smart program. They're here. And then I also brought a couple of plaques for the 2 years that we were engaged as Watt Smart Business Partner, and then we brought the big check. So I was hoping that we could maybe get a photo with your team and the big check and all of you if you'd like, so that we can thank you for all the great work of your team.
That'd be great.
Before we take a picture, any questions for me about what they did?
What are the 4 cities that you were studying?
So the 4 cities that participated were Layton, Roy, Clearfield, and Ogden. And then Jordanelle Special Service District was the other.
Did you go through the same analysis in these other cities then?
Yep, we did. We spent a treasure hunt at each of those. The workshops were all together. So there was some real great peer pressure or maybe peer encouragement from the different cities as they worked together. But then each of them had their own separate treasure hunt at their sites where we analyze specific opportunities for them.
And I'd like to recognize our water department for the fine savings that they did. But included in that would be their leader, Jay Louder, being involved with that.
For sure.
Yep, I agree completely.
Is this a one-time? Is there any type of follow-up, or do we meet with you again or review how we're doing?
That is a great question. So there's this experience, the operational changes is a one-time thing. You guys are graduates now. They've learned a lot. They're better at their jobs because of it. But Rocky Mountain Power does want to participate with you on all future capital improvements that save energy. So they have the Watt Smart program where if you're going to make a change, which, for example, the adjustments you made on your boosters at 24th Street, that actually, the total savings was higher, but I had to back out the savings that we already incentivized from the capital pool. So you saved actually more than 18.2, but I had to count some of it on capital. So when you're doing capital improvements to your system, if it will save energy, we want you to talk to us because Rocky Mountain Power wants to help pay for those projects. And they've got some thresholds they look at. It's got to be a program. If it's a project that does a lot of great things for you with a small amount of energy, they may not get crazy excited about it. If it's a project that saves a ton of energy and it's something you should do anyway, that maybe then they might not jump in as well. But if it's in between that, where it's a pretty good project, and with them paying for half of it or a third of it or 70% of it, it becomes a great project, they want to do that. So your guys know that. We talked about that a lot, but just so you know as well, please keep us involved. And that's for water stuff, but it also is involved anything you're doing. If you're changing out street lights and putting in LEDs or something more efficient than what you've got now, I don't even know what you have now, we want to get involved. If you decide that you're going to, redo parts of this building with new windows and new insulation, Rocky Mountain Power wants to help pay for those kind of things. So that's the other message from today is please let us help you pay for projects.
Great.
Mr. Vice Chair, I do have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just curious, when you did the evaluation, does this represent some of the low-hanging fruit, or is there still some more fruit to be picked, so to speak?
I think there's still opportunities, but this is most of what's there. So I think there's still opportunities to use more of your Weber Basin allotment, and I expect that your team will probably work to do better, even more and more of that, get it closer to that full amount. Because every gallon you bring from Weber Basin is a gallon you don't have to pump out of Eden. But most of the easy stuff we did.
Follow-up question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just thinking a little bit bigger picture, I know where the savings are here for us and the impacts and so on as a city. Is there any way to evaluate, or did we take into consideration at all the energy use by Weber Basin to provide for that full?
Yeah,
or
that's an
near
excellent
to full?
question because, if they're pumping out of the ground and we're saying, well, now we're not pumping out of the ground,
Right.
they are. Now, Weber Basin is actually a very low energy intensive operation. Most of their water is gravity fed. Their treatment plant that they treat, while it's up on the hill to us, it's still downhill from where the water source comes from. So no, we just treated their water as though it had no energy, but in reality, per million gallons, it's pretty close to that. They're not bad.
But was that energy already being used? We just weren't calling for it?
Yeah,
it was
they were
being used and stored?
It was probably being used
But
by
we
someone
weren't calling for
else.
it?
Yeah,
Okay.
because that water was going somewhere else instead of coming here. And all the cities we worked with had the same situation where they were way away from their Weber Basin. So we had to actually engage Weber Basin and say, hey, just so you know, all your customers are going to use more of the water that they pay for. Just beware of that and make sure you're planning accordingly.
They're like, hey, thanks a lot for that. Huh?
Yeah, that's right.
I just want, I have a quick comment. I think one of the things that people often look at cities as not savers and not good stewards of the taxpayers' money. And this is one of those areas where we're actually doing something, saving something, and actually being more efficient. And I know that that's a push in our city for sure. So I appreciate you helping us get over the finish line on this one. So thank you.
It was our pleasure.
Great. Ready for a picture?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Where does it usually go? Up there? Up here, you stand in front, you stand above?
Yep, that'd be great.
Okay.
Yeah, bring the water.
I don't actually want to hold anything, so for those of you that did all the stuff, you can hold it.
His team.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah, I do, but I'll go like this.
And we got here you can hold on to. And there's
I only
another
do
one
that
for
when
you.
Luis is here to make.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Photo and not video. All right. One more. 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
Oh, really?
Thank
Me
you.
too?
Thank you.
I know it's a little number.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oops.
This dovetails nicely with your renewable energy stuff.
Yeah.
What you don't use, you don't have.
Don't you have to pay? Don't have to pay for it.
We will get one sent to you, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I hear you, Chris.
Thanks.
Oops.
That's all.
Okay. You ready?
That's all we had. Thank you for all your time and all those that worked on it. So appreciate it.
Great,
Brady.
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You clean up pretty nice, Brady.
yeah. Congratulations on your new title. This is the first we've got to meet you, but great. Next up is approval of minutes. First is the minutes of the special meeting of July 30th, 2019, and the work session of September 3rd, 2019. Councilmember Nadolski.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I've reviewed those minutes, found them to be accurate.
And the special meeting of September 10th, 2019. Councilmember White.
Yes, Vice Chair, I've read those and they are correct to my recollection.
And the minutes of the joint work session of July 9th, 2019, and August 27th, 2019. Councilmember Heyer.
Yes, I've reviewed those minutes, found them to be accurate to the best of my recollection.
Thank you. And the minutes of the regular meeting and special board of canvas meeting of August 27th, 2019, the joint work session of September 3rd, 2019, the work session of September 10th, 2019, the minutes of the work session of August 6th, 2019, September 24th, 2019, the joint work session meetings of August 20th, 2019, and September 24th, 2019. Councilmember Stevens.
Yes, Chair, they're correct. You probably think that that's all I do is just read the minutes, but I make a motion that we adopt the minutes that have been presented.
Second.
We have a motion to adopt the minutes by Councilmember Stevens with a second by Councilmember Heyer. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Moving on, we have,
Sorry, Vice Chair Blair, did you skip the minutes that Councilmember Lopez had?
No,
They
they
went with-
included those.
Oh, okay.
I included them with
Thank you.
Councilmember Stevens.
Thank you. Apologize.
Next up, we have 4 items listed under common consent with setting one public hearing for February 4th, 2020. I would entertain a motion.
Vice Chair, I will entertain or make a motion then that we approve the common consent agenda as listed, and item A, set the public hearing for February 4th, 2020.
I second it.
We have a motion to approve the items listed under common consent and setting the public hearing for February 4th, 2020 by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Stevens. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. And we also have former Councilmember Garner in the audience who will be reappointed to the Weber Morgan Board of Health. So we appreciate your service on that and all you do. Would you like to speak or say anything? We'd love to hear from you. Thank you. Okay.
I'll make a comment if it's
Sure.
okay. I just want to mention that he was sweating the vote on the way in. Thanks for being here and thanks for helping it in that
Thank
way.
you.
You do a great job there.
Next up is a public hearing for the designation of a local historic resource at 159 West 2nd Street.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. It's a privilege to be here tonight. Speaking on one of my favorite things about working for Ogden City is getting involved in historic preservation, and this is to consider the home at 159 2nd Street to the local register. The location of this was it's located inside the Bingham's Fort boundary on 2nd Street. The streets are 2nd Street, and then the other major road is Wall. So it's just a little bit to the west of Wall on the south side of 2nd Street there, just to the east of Stone Farm National Register side as well. So, as I mentioned, the home was originally located inside the Fort Bingham area. It was constructed in 1863 as a rubble rock building, then added on to later in 1911. And the homeowner was the one that made the nomination. I went to the Landmarks Commission and is here today as well, just behind me. So we appreciate them being with us tonight. So when we look at factors for consideration for historic buildings, one of the things that helps us determine that is what's the historical significance of the home. And in terms of history, this home has gone through a few different phases. It was first constructed by Arthur Stone. He was an immigrant from England. He was favored by the Native Americans. He had a very extraordinary relationship with the Native Americans at the time. He constructed the rear portion of the home, the rubble rock portion, and the home was sold to Alexander Brown in 1874, who was one of the first Mormon settlers of the area, and then later sold to Henry James in 1911, and he was the one that added on to the front of the home, the bungalow-style portion of the home. And so in terms of architectural significance, the rubble rock is something that is very unique in the area. I'm not sure of many, if any, that are left. There have been some modifications done to both the rubble rock and the front bungalow-style home. Some of the vinyl, the original windows have been removed and replaced with vinyl windows, but it's not detrimental to the structures or to their historical integrity. There is one note to make, in that there's a garage on the property. If you've been out to see that, it's on the west portion of the property, and it's not included in the nomination. It was constructed not that long ago. Maybe in another 50 years we'll be considering that as well. I don't know. So in terms of the landmark recommendation, it was approved unanimously 8-0 for its historic and architectural significance. If there's any questions, I'd be glad to entertain when I can.
Any questions? No.
I kind of wonder what took them so long. All of our friends on West 2nd down there, they've been very involved in our process in anything in that area. Good job.
We would invite Mr. and Mrs. Krieger the opportunity to speak if they would like to, as being so the other petitioners.
And I did bring a handout, so Rick will share. Thank you, Rick. Oh, wait.
There you go.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
I'm sure.
That's my job.
Rick and Tammy Krieger, 159 West 2nd Street. I want you all to know that in the 25 years I've lived in Ogden, I have more hope with you all as the current leaders in Ogden than I've felt for a long time. So I want to thank you sincerely for your commitment to the city, the service that you provide, and your efforts to make Ogden a great place to live. We're here tonight for your final decision on the historic designation of our Pioneer home. And it's a unique area. Binghamsport has the only remaining Pioneer homes in Ogden. And I've invited you all out. Just let me know if you want to come. We make a really mean marinara dinner, and we'll cook for you. Because we do live some of the same heritage that the Jameses did. I mean, we had a very symbiotic relationship with Brendan and Marjorie James. He was born in our home. We grew our gardens together. I'd come home from work often. He'd be on the tree swing in the back. We'd sit, and it's been a lovely thing. So our home was one of the original houses in Binghamsport, then the farmhouse for the James family for over 70 years. And Rick and I have owned this house for 25 years. We really have put significant effort and resources into maintaining and restoring our 160-year-old home in hopes that this would be our home for the rest of our lives. We've all been here for a variety of reasons, and I know in my notes, I think we've done a good job. You all as leaders and your predecessors have done a good job. I think Anna and her family and Rick and I have put significant efforts into historic restoration. But as urban sprawl and development make more places look the same, it becomes increasingly crucial for all of us to keep our identities intact and unharmed. Even one or two striking historic buildings can help define a community and allude to its past. If whole neighborhoods can be preserved, the effect is greater. Our home is important historically because it is one of the very oldest in Ogden and one of the very few that has survived intact from the early days of settlement. Our Binghamsport neighborhood is even more important as a rare, and I want you to envision that Binghamsport is a diamond in the rough right now. And it gives a chronicle of the history of Ogden that isn't seen. You as city leaders and us as citizens share responsibility to protect and preserve the intrinsic value of our community. Binghamsport, although just beginning the formal protection process, is a rich portal to the significant pioneer and architectural history of Ogden. And remember, once these original features are gone, they can never be replaced. And I think it would be shameful if we allow it to be destroyed for the short-sighted process of cheap, affordable housing. I am very proud to live in Ogden and work in Ogden, and I think that collectively we're all doing good things. I remember when I first moved here how historic 25th Street is, what you all have worked for, and the owners of the businesses there. It's truly amazing. And I had an epiphany this week. You all have heard me talk a lot. And I don't know, it was in the middle of the night, one of those sleepless nights, going, oh my gosh, am I going to have to move because my home's going to be damaged again by what's going to occur, what may occur, depending on what you all decide. But anyway, I can see if you could tailor some of the RDA that's going on in the BDO and some of the Make Ogden campaign that you have right now to expand beyond the city center, and some of the federal subsidies that the city uses so wisely to buy and sell homes Because you know, some of my neighbors that live in historic homes, like you said, Rich, how come it's taken us so long? Honestly, I think that our neighborhood, we lack the knowledge, skills, abilities, education, financial resources to preserve what needs to be preserved. So I'm really asking and encouraging you to maybe glean that vision of Bingham's Fort as of restoring parts of it. It doesn't have to be all of it, but there are still, how many sites do we have remaining? Like 12? 12 historic pioneer dwellings there that could be part of the RDO process. I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what the parameters are, but I know when there's vision that you all share. And I'm looking at you, Ben, because I don't know you, but in the short time I've dealt with coming to the meetings lately, y'all are smart, but you have a vision too. And I can see it. I can see it bringing people to Ogden, just like Union Station, just like 25th Street. It would be awesome. If you don't remember, Landmarks already printed a walking tour brochure of the Bingham's Fort area. Anna said it needs redoing, of course, because she's a perfectionist about our history. But we would love to champion and work with you in whatever capacity that we could as owners of these historic properties and ensure that we don't lose that piece of Ogden, because it's rich beyond words and beyond money. So thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks in advance for your positive vote.
Okay, this is a public hearing, so we would allow anyone the opportunity to speak on this issue.
Lots of times people don't want to be on a historic register. They think it's going to limit their ability to make changes, but actually the register really helps us to make changes because they make it so that the changes are done appropriately. And I just want to say that long before the Kriegers even planned to apply for the historic register, they were proud of their home and they were dedicated to making historically appropriate changes. And one example, I wanted you to see this picture here, is that Rick Krieger was meticulous in researching the appropriate type of vintage mortar and limestone wash to apply to the rubble rock walls of their homes. And they've really preserved it really well. The house is a model, a farming house that was in the pioneer era. Then it went into the golden age of farming and on into the prosperous Ogden age of period of farming from 1920s to the 1950s. And at all times it included a 37-acre farm. There were 21 forts on the Wasatch Front, and about 20 years ago, the late Gordon Jones researched all 21 fort sites. And he said Bingham's Fort is the only one left that has anything of significance in terms of ditches, roadways, pioneer houses, and farmland. So it's kind of nice to preserve this house and the whole area as just being representative of the 21 forts. And this is the only one left that has things in it that can be preserved. And then let's see. Oh, when Art Stone built this house, the walls of the fort were still standing on the north and south sides of the street, and the ditch, which had been built to go along the south side of the wall, he built right beside that ditch. And so the walls are gone now, but the ditch and the house still remain. And he was really unique with the Indians. He was fascinated by them. He assimilated himself into their culture. He rode with them. He participated in their games. When he was dressed in buckskin and had markings on his face, you couldn't tell him from the Indians. And likewise, he invited the Indians into his home, this home that we're preserving, and he taught them the English culture, specifically how to dance English dances, and he took them to the settlers' dances and the church dances, and the white girls liked to dance with those Indians because they danced so well. So he was a great ambassador to the Indians. And so a lot of residents in the new Fort Bingham subdivision told us that part of the reason they chose their house was because they really liked having the historic neighborhood. And thank you. We're really looking forward to seeing this house preserved.
Thanks, Anna.
Hello, I'm Connie Cox. I live at 2532 Eccles Avenue, and I'm a member of the Weber County Heritage Foundation. And I just think that, again, I agree with you, Mr. Heyer, that we have considered this area for a long time. And if you think back in early Ogden, this would be a rural neighborhood, a rural area. And we can't always, I'm very glad that Eccles Historic District is on the register, but we can't always, and Jefferson, and we have residential, we have commercial on 25th Street, but this is, we're losing our rural examples of historic preservation if we don't be careful. Thanks.
Good evening. I'm David Stone Montgomery. Stone being my mother's maiden name, some of the earlier settlers in the area. And I live at 317 West 2nd Street, so not too far, but within the boundaries of the fort. In fact, my family came, my mother's side, in I think it's 1853 to live in the area, and I've been there most of my life. In fact, I'm like the 5th generation to farm on the original farm, which is still owned by the family. Anyway, I just wanted to say that, there's a lot of neat historical places here in Ogden, downtown Ogden and up on the avenues. Some really amazing, neat homes there that's being preserved. And this part of the Ogden on West 2nd Street is one of the oldest places. Family been there for centuries almost. And anyway, I've enjoyed growing up there and learning about the history of the family and in the area. So I think that this is a good idea to preserve some of these old places. We have big plans for this part of town. I think it's going to be a really interesting place to see in the future. And there's a few homes that are on the register now, which I think is really great. So I really appreciate the opportunity to speak and to be a part of the community and part of this pioneer area. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Ralph Price, 636 6th Street, and down here in Ogden, number 77. I just want to say that I haven't grown up in Layton, Utah, and the big city trip was always to come to Ogden. But my family started out, Dad was one of the first big businessmen, black businessmen here, and had a station on 25th and Lincoln, and downtown there. But one of the things that we did was that we lived in the rural area of Layton, Utah, and as it coming out to Ogden here, I remember the west side as a kid. I remember the west side of town and this, and I remember the importance of my mother being an educator and knowing about being able to have pioneers and stuff that was coming here. And in Layton, one of the Christopher Layton home that we moved into was one of the oldest homes in Layton. One of the efforts that they're doing to try to do in Davis County is to preserve some of those older homes and some of those older things, because it is our heritage. It is the part of Utah that is passing on. My mother and my father, Mr. Layton, different ones are gone. Joe McQueen over here, different ones that have passed on, Annabelle Madsen, and all the ones that were in their 90s and 100s and are passing on. That was Ogden, and this was Ogden. And before we had the commercialism that we have, and we become the second biggest city next to Salt Lake, and this we had settlements, and we had this was coming to the northern area up here, and coming down from Wellsville, and this area was settled so that we have the existence of a Davis County, and Weber County was one of the first. But one of the things that we had here was diversity too. We had the railroads and stuff, and we had the Chinese, we had the blacks, we had the different ones that were integrated with inside of these settlements and were accepted with inside of these settlements here in Ogden, Utah. I think it's very important that we take the chance to be able to preserve our heritage and preserve the diversity that we have, because it reaches so far back that it transcends whatever race there is. And Ogden has had a history of that, and I think it would be very important for us to be able to preserve this and to start where we started, the settlements and the things that are important there. Thank you.
Good evening. Malik Dial, 2679 Jackson Avenue. Went to an NAACP meeting the past week. I learned something very new about the Marshall White Center that I had never knew before, and it really struck my heart. And for those of you who don't know in the council or out here sitting down listening, the Marshall White Center is the only building standing in the state of Utah, government building that has a person of color's name on it, that has a black person's name on it. If most people here have been reelected, and the building's falling apart. So, what part have you been playing,
Malik?
With that,
we're talking about the rezone at 159 West 2nd Street. This isn't just general public comments.
Okay.
So, yep, you're okay. Something to think about.
Good evening, Angel Castillo. I think it's important that we try to preserve as much historic character of Ogden as we can, because that's who we are, it's where we've been, and it's what sets us apart from newly constructed cities. I mean, we have a priority focusing on 25th Street and maintaining that historic character. So if it is possible and does not impede progress for the city, I suggest we highly preserve what we can when we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, looks like we see no more movement. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion to close the public hearing by Councilmember Heyer with a second from Councilmember White. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And if there's no further comment or questions?
I do have a comment or two. I have been in the service of our city for a long time. And I have, every time there's been something of something happening, a proposal, these folks down on West 2nd have been involved. And they've always come with the same type of a mission to preserve their, the historic value of that neighborhood. I think, I went to Boston on an APA conference several years ago and went through some of those historic places and it kind of changed the way I look at old things. If somebody hadn't had the vision years ago, we wouldn't have the old red church and we wouldn't have some of those things anymore. While I do think there's a difference between an old tract house and what we're talking about here today, we've got to have the vision, and these people, I think they are the gems of our city, not necessarily the homes. Mr. Montgomery years ago sold off the development rights to his historic farm to try to preserve that area. Anna has educated us, frequently on the history of the area and where the Bingham Fort was. And, we wouldn't know all this stuff if these people didn't get involved. And I appreciate them probably as much as I do what they're doing. And, I hate to say this, but they're not spring chickens anymore. We gotta. I know, we're I didn't mean to disparage any of your age, but these are the sages of the community. We need to let them guide us in what's appropriate there, and I'm happy that they're here and for the contribution that they've put forward to our greater city for protecting their area. So,
thank you,
Vice Chair. I have just one question. It goes back to the 12 structures. There, are they on the historical registry or are they not? Oh, okay. I would suggest maybe the landmarks would probably want to take a look at that and set that in process. I agree with Councilman Heyer, is that historically preservation has a special spirit, and it has a special spirit because it has a history of what it was then, and we need to draw back to those roots and find some principles in that concept there. So I'd be either have this landmarks work with the city and look and see what could be done with those 12 structures aspect there.
Okay.
And I have a follow-up question, and maybe Clint, you can answer this. But so much like Eccles and much like Jefferson districts, is the Bingham Fort area a district that we've identified as a historic district, or? And then if it isn't, what do we need to do? I guess I'm just following up with maybe a larger piece than just the 12 houses or structures.
That's a great question. I think that we would have to look back and see. I mean, all of those nominations would have to look at the historical context, which there certainly is architectural context, and I think the other one is neighborhood context, and see how that area may fall into a district as well. There were several applications that came forward at the same time as the one that we're considering today, and then many of them were taken off the landmarks meeting for consideration because many of the homeowners have their homes under contract, and they didn't want the preservation aspect to get in the way of the sale of their home. So we may see some more of those coming back. You'll probably see some rezones and some other ideas come forward for this area, but that's something that the landmarks could certainly consider in terms of looking at the area as a district.
Area, like a district, yeah.
Okay, great questions.
You ready for motion?
I am ready for a motion.
Then I will move that we adopt ordinance 2020-1, designating the Stone Brown James home as a historic resource for Ogden City.
I second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2020-1 with a second by Councilmember Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Nadolski?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Acting Chair Blair?
Aye. That passes. Thank you. And I would second the comments made by Councilmember Heyer for thanks for all you've done and the work that you guys do. Next up is new business, fiscal year 2021 budget goals. Amy Sue Maybe.
Thank you, Vice Chair Blair. Thank you. So before you this evening, this is a little bit new and an approach that the council requested in preparation for the budget and after the adoption of the strategic plan to look at adopting your goals prior to the administration's proposal of the budget. And so this contains what would be included and what you'd like to see as part of the budget. So the purpose of this document, as mentioned, is to define budgetary intents and priorities to ensure that the budget is in alignment with the strategic plan initiatives. And you'll notice that all of the topics of discussion in this are strategic plan directives. And so they're very much attached and associated together, and also to inform budget development, review, approval, and implementation. So the areas of focus, and again, this aligns with the strategic plan: economic development, community safety, recreation, city image and reputation, and fiscal sustainability and transparency. So under economic development, the budget priority included is the Quality Neighborhoods Program, and that is continued funding for that, in addition to looking at housing after you did your extensive fact-finding workshops on housing. And in addition to that, there's several other budget goals, just looking with building permits at customer service and public education, continuing with the BIC of supporting new businesses and small businesses, with commercial property, trying to make sure it's not vacant and increasing what is available in the city, funding for the consolidated plan and annual action plan, economic development partnerships, the county-wide, multi-county jurisdictional one that's going on, and then also the Ogden CAN with employment, just continuing to increase those opportunities, boosting the local economy, and the BRT project, bus rapid transit. So under community safety, the main priority would be the fire and police salaries, and that's that continual, they're on the STEP program with their salary increases, so looking at that. But then also, there's been a lot of discussion on non-monetary incentives, and so really asking about those, looking as to where those can come into play. And for additional budget goals, continuing to support the emergency preparedness efforts that the city does, the fire department does. And with the fire department, there are still a few outstanding with the management study items to fulfill, and then also Fire Station 4 improvements. Pedestrian and vehicle safety, this is something that came up with crosswalks and also just accessibility on safe routes to school and roadways, making sure that those are adequately paved. And lighting also came up as part of that, so it was included in this as part of the strategic plan. So the police department, once again, focusing in on those salaries, but also some of the things that came out of the strategic plan were looking at panhandling and disruptive public behaviors. And so that's also included as part of the goal, and then also increasing funding for training availability for the police department and for school safety. Again, to the prior a little bit with the sidewalks, but then also the school resource officers, just really coordinating with the school district to see how best to allow students to have a safe experience at school. So with recreation, youth recreation came out as the budget priority for this year, but as additional budget goals, focusing in on adult recreation and programming that's available for adults, and arts and cultural events. There's a lot of things happening with that, so continuing to support the existing programming, but also looking at adding new, more diverse, looking at some of Ogden's diversity programming as part of that. Downtown events, the Ogden Marathon, the Farmers Market, all of those programs continuing to support. And then with event participation, encouraging that and helping people to have awareness as to what events are occurring within the community. And with recreational amenities, as part of that, really helping people to fully utilize those, helping promote public education about proper use of those, and then promote use of the bathroom facilities as well. So with city image and reputation, the focus, and there's kind of some underlying themes here, but diversity and the public engagement. So those are kind of central themes throughout this, but As part of that, looking at the capital improvements and how those can encourage the diversity in public education, and funding for the diversity in public education, I guess just a step back with that, really funding more communication and more opportunities there, and even looking at Spanish translation language services as well. So a citizen survey to look at how people perceive the city, and then also how they feel inclusion-wise within the city. City infrastructure, looking at water improvements, how those types of things all fit within master planning, neighbor up grants, continuing the council's program and initiative to help encourage positive neighborhood interactions, and then with sustainability, just continuing to look at opportunities to work with the Sustainability Committee on educational programming. Union Station, looking at the campus planning and moving forward with some of that and those improvements. So with fiscal sustainability and transparency, and this one wasn't a strategic plan initiative per se, but it was kind of an underlying theme in the strategic plan. So there's definitely some compatibility there. But number one, really looking at the city employees and essential services and what is being provided. And one of the things that came out of your discussions is really making sure that employees feel valued, that we're able to retain qualified employees and to pay them for what they're worth. And right now, the salary study is being completed for the city and really focusing in on, where the positions need to be focused and what services need to be provided. So in addition to that budget priority, there's also some budget goals with budget development. So that's really kind of that outline as to how the budget process works. When the budget's submitted, I know that that's per state law, but just kind of as part of that, and then also looking at the city utilities, and every year that's part of the analysis, and then the sustainability model and using that as a model for the general plan. Cost savings measures, that's something that you've done over the past few years. The department directors have done an excellent job at finding those cost savings and bringing those to you. And then the fleet management, and as part of the fleet management, looking at alternative vehicle options, whether it be more fuel efficient, electric, or CNG. So with that, that's the extent of my overview of your budget goals for FY21. I know it's a little weird and in advance, but it's kind of cool that you've asked for this to be done. So any questions of me at this time?
No, but thanks for taking all that we did in the strategic plan process and making it into something that actually is in 6 slides that makes sense.
And I do have to say and give a lot of credit, our executive director and our deputy director were really instrumental in helping put this together. This was a team effort. It was funny. I was like, I'm not sure who should give this presentation because I kind of helped author it, but they really put in a ton of work into this and editing, and really we tried to funnel in all of what you had expressed with some of these things. So I wanted to make sure that that was inclusive of your ideas. And
thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Everybody.
With that, I would entertain a motion.
Vice Chair Blair, I will make a motion then that we adopt Resolution 2020-2.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed resolution 2020-2 and a second by Councilmember White. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember White?
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski?
Aye.
Acting Chair Blair?
Aye. Thank you. That passes. And thanks to Amy Sue and staff for putting that together and getting that for us. Thank you. Next up is public comments.
Where'd Malik go?
If there's anyone in the audience that would like to address the council at this time. Yeah. I was going to say, I can start giving you a thumbs up when it's your time. If you're
No problem with that.
Okay.
Malik Dial, 2679 Jackson. Good evening, everybody. As I was mentioning earlier, the Marshall White Center is the only government building in Utah with a black person's name on it. If we continue to let it go, doesn't say too many good things about our leadership in this city. So I hope that some type of urgency gets placed on it, knowing that if you knew it already, then it should have been an urgency already, in my view. So from what I understand, Ogden's approximately 31% Hispanic. We have approximately 143 police officers who are sworn in our department, from what I read on the website. There's been a lot of statistics given by the mayor as far as policy changes and things like that since I've been coming to the council meetings that he's been able to articulate very well. So my question is, out of the 100, and I know I would like to preface this question by saying I know there's a nationwide hiring problem with police, but that being said, out of those 143 sworn officers, how many are persons of color, and what recruiting efforts have been taken to change that to where 31% of our officers look like me?
Thanks, Malik.
No wonder you tried to.
I thought you were coming up together.
Huh?
I thought you two were going to come up together.
Well,
Yeah.
he was helping me, but I've got myself caught already too. So there we go. Ralph Price, 636 6th Street. I would like to reiterate with what he said about the Marshall White Center, and I don't say it's just being a man of color, being a minority with inside of Ogden City. There's Leonora Lopez, there's Mrs. Martinez, there's the Chinua, and different ones that they have held different contests and different talent things that were over there at the Marshall White Center, so that a lot of your minority community, it was a hub and a place where not only for Ogden City here, but Davis County. We used to come over here to just play basketball, to swim, to do the different things. We do our scouting events. We come in off the farms and stuff, and so it's where we could go ahead and we could mix together. We could go ahead and learn what it is to be a minority community, and it's where we learn from our mothers and our fathers what it was to be able to integrate ourselves and to once again to feel pride in ourselves, but mainly to feel a pride as a Utahn, and we learn to be a part of society as a whole. I would like to also just say that I travel in this chair, and I would like to thank Jay for the work that's been done to improve the roadways, and that's. But one of the things that I'd like to see us be able to do is to be able to be attentive during these winter months and everything. That it is a little more difficult to get around when you are handicapped and you have to travel in these chairs, or you travel with a cane, or you travel with, so I would like to see an emphasis be on a little more on sidewalks and this having to go out into the road to be able to just travel and progress down the road because sidewalks are not taken care of, and this with the amount of snow and stuff that's there, you're out there and you have to dodge the cars. And this, I've been hit 5 times and don't really like it. And so I would just like to encourage that we be more attentive and this of the passageways that people that are with handicaps, people with a little aged, or this are challenged in any way, might be able to go ahead and facilitate for themselves the same opportunity that 2 legs have and to get around. And that's, I want to compliment this board at City Council and everything as we're looking to get into 2020 here. Mike and everything too, Jay Louder, and this, we've got great things ahead and looking forward to being a part of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ralph.
evening, Angel Castillo. Thank you for everything that you've been doing lately with regards to conservation. And I love the fact that we stream these meetings, and I love the fact that we have podcasts. I've spoken to several people that's a great format for them to listen to. And it's really hard for people to get here and figure out childcare and work and so on and so forth. And so I'm a bit curious and wonder why the city council work sessions are not broadcast. Specifically, because very few people, unless you work for yourself, such as I do, are allowed to come at 4 o'clock and sit for 2 hours and hear what's happening. Specifically, it's important because Councilmember White brought up a brilliant idea that I wholeheartedly support during the work session that nobody would know about unless they were there. And specifically for the public record, we yay Ogden City Water. We saved $27,000 in change, and that's magnificent, and I'm very excited about it. And Councilmember White brought up a great suggestion. How can we use that money rather than putting it back into the system and pay for things that are part of our operational costs, which are great? But what I think we really need as a city is our citizens need a tangible win. They need to see something that makes a difference. And while $27,000 may not be a lot of money, there's a lot of things you can do with $27,000 for sustainability. According to UtahRivers.org, 70% of cities in Utah's water is used to irrigate lawns. There are cities all across Utah that have programs with catchy names as Cash for Grass, Rip Your Strip. And basically, if you replace a park strip, you can save 5,000 to 8,000 gallons of water in Utah. Now, granted, that's not a huge cost savings for the user, but overall, if we as a city have a bunch of people that are doing that, we're going to save water. And ultimately, it's about protecting our local environment. We live in a semi-arid climate. Localscapes is a great big program through Salt Lake County where they offer cash rebates for people if you complete a project there. They have classes that show you how to do these things, and they'll have architects review your plan. UtahWaterSaves.com gives people within their district $1.25 per square foot reimbursement for replacing grass. So let's take a look at that $27,000 and let's do something smart with it like the state does. The state has a program where you can turn in a lawnmower and they'll give you an electric lawnmower, and when they're gone, they're gone. Same thing for replacing a fireplace. They'll give you a gas fireplace, you apply every year, and when they're gone, they're gone. Maybe we can take a look at that and look to other programs that are already working and figure out something that we can offer to Ogden citizens for either a cash rebate or even if the water department wants to use that money to replace smart meters, other cities already do that. They offer a 50% reimbursement, so we can get more. Thank you.
Thanks, Angel.
My name is Shelby Hillen, and I live at 832 22nd Street. On Tuesday, our neighbors passed away. They were found dead in their home, and we've watched it for 15 years, the downhill decline that they have gone through. When they passed away, they had no water, they had no lights. They had lights, but they had no electricity in their home, and they had no heat. And I guess the question is, and they had a social worker with Weaver Human Services that did nothing for them. So I guess the question is like, what are we doing for those citizens that can't afford, I guess, or can't fend for themselves? What are we doing? Are we doing enough to help them so they don't freeze to death in the winter? And your police force has to come pull them out of their homes.
My name is Shirlene Hill, and I also live at 840 22nd Street, 832, pardon me, 22nd Street. I am the owner of that property. As she stated, what has transpired in the last week. My question is what as council members and as city members, they classify Ogden City as city central. Well, where does city central really start? Where does it end? People that ask me where I live, I tell them, they say, oh, you live in the ghetto. No, I don't live in the ghetto. I live in city central, right in the midst of where everything goes on. My question to the city council and to Weber County Human Services, the gentleman that got put in there, Mr. Garner, I believe was his name. My question is what can be done to help these people? The elderly, I'm 69 years old. I intend to live my life out in my home. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of my yard, paying my bills. I work 5 days a week, but I have neighbors, as those that live next to me, that can't fend for themselves. They can't provide for themselves. The people that own the homes that they live in put cosmetic jobs on them so that they don't get in trouble with the city. The foundations are falling apart on a lot of these homes in that area, and nothing's being done to help these people. They can't afford it. Some of them are very indigent. They don't have any more than maybe $200 or $300 a month. They can't afford it, and everything they make goes towards their rent. My understanding is if you don't have, I know there's programs out there, but there's ways to help these people get through life, the last few years of their life, if they choose to live there. But it's not happening. I'm not seeing it happen. Instead, I'm seeing more and more elderly people that live in my neighborhood. Some of them are not even elderly. Some of them are just people that are flat poor. They can't afford, but that's the only place they can live. But they can't afford everything, so they do camouflage. How can we fix this? As a city, we're trying to beautify the city and create beautification to attract people to our city. We want people to buy homes in our city. But if, as council people and as city people, if we can't help the people that can't be helped, then how are we going to beautify Ogden? I've lived there for 30 years, and I'm seeing it.
Thank you. Okay. Any comments from the questions that were raised during public comment? Anyone care to address? I don't know, Mayor, do you want to address Malik's question about the police force, or?
I can address them all in my comments
That'd
if
be
you'd
perfect.
like. Okay.
Yep. We'll take comments from you then.
Okay. I don't have that statistic, but that's something we've been very worried about, Malik, and that's what Diana Lopez is working on. We hired her to go in and help with the diversity of the police force. So I don't have that off the top of my head for you, but I can tell you that that's a priority for us, and we've worked very hard on it. And I think she's very capable. There are some challenges with it, but I'm happy to have that for you for the next time that you come. I also wanted to point out that with Marshall White, we appreciate those comments, and we've appreciated a lot of the people that have come for that. And the last year, we put a $400,000 roof on it. We added the Real Salt Lake futsal court, the Utah Jazz basketball court outside. We're putting $65,000 into a new shelter out, a Bowery for people to be able to hang out outside in, and we're resurfacing the gym floor. So we're putting time and energy into it. I don't want anybody to think that we're not making that a priority. It has been. We wouldn't be making those investments. We want to have a grander plan for that, and that's what we're working on. We've had community meetings about that, and we'll continue to work on it. So it's a priority for us. We have ounces of resources and tons of issues sometimes, so where we put those dollars is a subject that we all talk about and debate as we go through the budget hearings and make priorities for that. So I wanted to point that out. In terms of the Hillens and the tragedy that happened in your neighborhood, we have some resources. Code enforcement and our director of code enforcement, Aline Evans, has spent hundreds of hours working with them, trying to get them access to Weber Human Services and some of those other resources that are available. Sometimes that can be a challenge, and so we don't want you to think that we weren't aware of that problem. We've talked about that in the department director meeting a number of different times and tried to find resources and other tools to help people in those circumstances. So that didn't happen in necessarily a vacuum. We had worked hard to try and find ways to help and improve their lives and make sure that they knew where they could go to get some of the help. Some of that help doesn't come directly from Ogden City. It comes through the county and the health department and some other areas. And so our job is when we find those environments, we try to plug them in to those
places that do have the resources and the professional tools to go in and help with those environments. So we're continuing to work on that, and if those come up, I hope you'll continue to engage code enforcement and allow them to get people in front of those that do have the resources to help them. So that was really unfortunate, and certainly for the family, but for everybody that knew them as well. And I know that Aline felt terrible when that happened, because she had spent so much time and energy trying to get them in front of some people that could give them the tools to help them in that environment. So I appreciate that, and we're certainly sensitive to that. And then just lastly, on the eve or the day after Martin Luther King Day, I'd just like to end with my favorite quote from Dr. King. And certainly in this political environment and everything we see and hear on the 24-hour news cycle and everything else, when he said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." I think if we took just a kernel of that and applied it to our day-to-day lives, our lives would be much better collectively. So I appreciated that, and certainly respect everything that he did to change our country for the better in so many ways.
Thank you. Comments from council members?
I guess I'll start on this end. And
Okay.
we can work that way. The last time we met, I mentioned that Councilman Heyer and myself, we ride together. And I said we do that because we save on the price of gas, which we do. But the main... I do.
No,
but
he helps.
But the main ingredient why we did this was that we wanted quality air. And we hope that even though we did this, it's just one component, but we wanted to encourage others to kind of partner up and maybe carpool whenever necessary. Plus, it's nice to have someone to talk to as you come down to these meetings, and it's nice to have someone to talk to as you leave these meetings, because sometimes we have a lot to save, and we don't say in our meetings, but we can say with one another. The other aspect is that the Marshall White Center, I went to Martin Luther King, and I went there on the celebration on Monday. The Marshall White Center is an intriguing and an important part of that community, and it's an important part of Ogden. And Betty Sawyer has a group that meets on a regular basis to gather information of what can be done with the Marshall White Center. And so if anybody has any ideas, is to get a hold of Betty and her group and give those suggestions and ideas to her. Would be very helpful. There are some things that need to be improved. We went through as a council and looked at both the swimming pool, and we looked at the facility, and we looked at the coloring in there, and the first impression I got is it's a tired place. And so we have to have a facility that not only can assist the people the citizens who attend, but it's inviting. We need to open it up. We need to provide more colorful inside on the paintings and that, and maybe have more light come into the center, as I see it. So this is going to be a long, drawn-out process, but once we get it finished, then it'll be an asset, not only to Ogden City, but to that part of the city where we can contribute. There'll be many individuals who will use that opportunity. I'd also like to thank Amy Sue and our staff for setting up our budget goals. I've been in the process of looking at budget goals for many, many years, and what has transpired this evening is that our staff and Amy has outlined the structure of how we can develop a budget that would be beneficial to operate the city. My goal is to not only emphasize what priorities on the budget that this council has, but I want to understand what items the administration has, so we can mesh those together and achieve a greater capacity of of using our money wisely in that aspect there. The other thing is that I'd like to commend our street department removing the snow removal. They had to work on Thanksgiving Day, which was just a horrendous thing. If they did not clean the roads, we would not move. And they're so vital to our operation here. And I've mentioned that to Jay on several occasions. But the thing is that I look at every one of our directors, every one, and each one of them are committed to performing their job, their assignment in a leadership and a professional way. We are fortunate to have the directors that we have in the city. And the reason we can save $27,000 in the water is because we have the people in the right places making the right decisions. And we on the council have seen that over the years. I knew our water was going to improve because we went out and invested in a water line that was coming down the canyon. We invested in a filter plant up there that could produce effectively at a lower cost of water for our citizens. And that adds to everything. But I think our directors are the ones that need to be recognized in that capacity. And I do that. Thank you.
Any other comments from council members?
I'll kick in a thought or two. I was very surprised a few weeks ago when there was some mention that we were considering shuttering the Marshall White Center. And if I might go on record at this time, I am not speaking for other council members directly. They can speak for themselves, but I don't think I'm the minority in that we have no intention to shutter the Marshall White Center. The pool is a question that needs to be resolved, and I don't have the answers. At this point in time, I am confident it's going to be a budget discussion for this coming budget season that's upon us, and we'll find some answers at that point. Once we've kind of knocked around all the issues and it's a complicated issue. So, but I want to go on record that I have no intention of voting to shutter the Marshall White Center.
Thank you.
I just wanted to add to Ralph's comments real quick. He mentioned ADA accessibility and talked about our amenities within the community and the streets, but something I've been meaning to mention a number of times and keep forgetting, but his comments reminded me that the doors that are down on the floor level, the doors on the backside, the ADA doors do not work. So that's something that I was hoping to make the administration aware of, if it's something we can look into. I know we have at least one person that uses them every Tuesday, but I'm sure there's many, many more. Thanks.
And along with that too, I think the other thing is it's even me who has two legs has a hard time getting around on the snow that when sidewalks aren't cleared. So it's just a good reminder for all of us to make sure that we get out and do ours, and if you need to, do your neighbors too. So.
Vice Chair Blair, if I could add one more thing. Just wanted to give thoughts and condolences to Dave Good's family and his wife, Dawn. He died, and we don't know what happened with the plane crash that happened last week. That's under investigation, but he was a big business owner and one of the first to come in with the outdoor industry and was a big cheerleader and proponent of Ogden City. And so a lot of heavy hearts after we got that news, and just wanted to publicly thank him for everything that he has done for our city.
If there's nothing further, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
There's a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Nadolski. This is a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We're adjourned.